Hey, and welcome to the second episode. And yeah, my second guest is Nickalus. Just say something about yourself, introduce yourself a bit.
That's so broad. Hi, I'm a musician and multimedia artist, Nickalus Lindale. And yeah, thanks for having me on to talk about music stuff.
Yeah, yeah, we already had like long ass calls talking about all stuff in the music industry, and yesterday you also had a topic that I told you to wait with telling me to make it as a podcast. But because we're releasing a song today, or we have released a song that came out today, I will just play it real quick. I still haven't got it fixed that we both can hear it, but I let it play for the audience a bit. Yeah, it's it's actually the first song that you have sent me to work on, and I really like how you got all that instrumentalization together, like with horn sections and yeah, all that different melodies all together. That's actually something that I'm struggling with when producing my own solo music, having just like a melody, some chords, a drum, what is actually enough for chill beats, but is as long not that much of a fun working with. So it's pretty cool since we start working together to do this kind of more experimental new chill beats, because it's kind of a different wave than the regular super mellow beats that have like some dreamy chords and a very filtered drum beat. I don't like the super filtered drum beat.
Yeah, the super highly compressed drum kit with one thing that I always hear in the sound design of lo-fi music that always bothers me is the like super piercing snare that I hear in so much lo-fi music, because the kit is like so compressed. And I think you did a good job mixing the drums to really keep the drum kit has like impact. You can hear it and it's like very percussive, but it doesn't like cut through the mix. And I don't know, that might be like a sidechain thing that a lot of people do, just sidechaining all the different parts of their kit to the music. But yeah, I like how it's a little bit more subdued in this one than a lot of lo-fi that I've heard.
Yeah, for me, it's I like having like a present kick, and I usually cut a lot of the high end in the snare and in the hi hats, because for a chill beat, personally speaking, let's say I'm reading and having it played in the background, I can go with like super dreamy melodies that can be, yeah, that don't have to be boring at all. But if you have a over presence of the snare, like hitting through it on every second and fourth hit, that's kind of distracting. Also, like having super busy hi-hats, because I also heard like some lo-fi beats, but in the style of trap beats that have super busy hi-hats, and I really do not enjoy having that playing in the background when trying to focus on something.
Yeah, especially because I feel like in a lot of the music, there's a lot of like high cutting that happens in the genre, like cutting out the high frequencies. A lot of the instruments, like the pads or like the electric pianos, it's very like low to mid range heavy, and then hearing those like hi hats like unfiltered, they just are like the only like high frequency in a lot of lo-fi music. And so to me, when I hear it, they always stick out to me, like especially if they're super quantized and you can tell they're just written on the grid, just that.
Yeah, that's some. I had like a super weird experience with this one label. They asked me to like produce around 6 to 8 songs for them. We ended up me sending them 2 and then like ghosting them, because I did some super smooth beats with very much shuffle in the drums, like a lot of swing and getting like the head moving rhythms. And then the owner of the label, I can't even remember the name of the label, but that's not important. He like sent it over to me, and I will do a new mix, and I'm like, okay, send it over. And he like quantized everything in the drums, and it was like the melodies were still good because they were dreamy and atmospheric, but it kind of changed from a really decent beat that sounds good to me to this very quantized and way too clean mixed. Because I would say the one of the main how do I say focus or difficulties in mixing chill beats is to get a clean mix that doesn't sound super clean. So you got this noises and this crackles and everything in the background that makes it kind of dirty again. But it cannot be like all over the place, The leveling have to be on a decent point. Also, the equalizing have to be pretty good to have everything fit. But it's like clean, but it's not clean. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's like you have to make each part individually good, and then and throwing the like noise chains and the like crackles and stuff. I don't know how you like to mix it, but I usually use things like that on like a bus, like a sub main bus, where like I have all my like plate reverb sends and stuff like that, everything going in through their sends, and then I have everything go to like a mix bus, where then I do like my mixing and like my compression of everything together, and then into another sub bus where like I add in the noise and stuff like that back into the chain, the saturation, and it's like an old school like tape method, and I've talked to you about that previously.
Yeah, you told me about that. I think in our first call, I guess.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And like I was just lucky to have like someone who taught me like studio production on like old school gear, and of just like committing things to tape, summing tracks together. Like, don't worry about having every single instrument on a different track. Like, oh, you have all these guitars, sum them together into one track, and then just treat it as like an ensemble with the rest of the mix. I felt like that really helped level up my production.
Yeah, definitely. Because you do very clean. When I get stems from you, they are super clean and organized. I really like that. About this noise thing, I had this shift like 2 or 3 weeks ago where I stopped putting all the noise making plugins or just like the ambience noises like rain or anything. I'm approaching it like with the input you gave me, having everything mastered on the channel where I have the pre-master on, and leave the master channel completely plugin free. But what I also do is I'm mastering the beat without any noise crackles. Obviously with saturation and everything, I put like still RC20s or tape emulators or all that kind of stuff on it. But I turn down the noise to 0 because it's not mastering the noise. Usually you can have the noise as low as possible, and one of the compressors or the limiters in your mastering chain will make it super loud and annoying. So I have just like, I have the master on one side, the noises besides that, and this goes to the final master channel, and the noise is exactly on the volume and within that equalizer range that it should be. And it makes so much more pleasant to hear.
Yeah. I think that it's like one of those things where we've gotten so far away from like original techniques with the like lo-fi genre, because, and I wanted to like mention this earlier when you were talking about like quantized like drums and stuff. It's like, so first of all, like with the quantized drums, it's like it always brings up the idea of Jay Dilla, right? Like one of the best producers and like sample flippers that have kind of been known to that genre. Are you familiar with Jay Dilla?
Yeah, I am. For me, it's like if you say one of the best sampler producer, I'm like having in my back head like, no man, that's Kanye. Like
okay,
OG
but
Kanye.
yeah. But Kanye was like, okay, so see, this is what I mean is like Jay Dilla, like his production style was born from like restriction, and this is kind of what it brought this back up was like how we were talking about like tape production style, right? And it's like Kanye had, you know, at that time, I'm pretty sure Kanye has like always used Logic. I'm pretty sure he's always been like a MacBook guy. I may be wrong about that.
Absolutely no idea how he started. I just know that his like the beats on the Graduation album is like nothing to compare to those beats on this one specific album.
And so, but like Jay Dilla, right? Like Jay Dilla, he was working from like an MPC. Like literally all of his music was made on an MPC. And he was like ripping, because he didn't have a computer. He wasn't like a computer producer. Like he didn't have a laptop. At that time, laptops weren't really feasible, you know, because of their like computation and stuff. And so this dude was just like ripping vinyls, like plugging his MPC into like a vinyl player to like track samples out of a vinyl into his MPC, and everything was played in. And like none of his music was quantized because he would just hit record and finger drum everything in, and it just gave it so much more like humanity, you know, instead of having it like computerly generated or like locked into a grid. And I think that it's like what we were talking about with like the quantization and stuff. I think it's like really driven from the fact that our tools are so much different from like the beginning of sampling, like 80s hip hop and stuff like that, where it was actual like record scratching, things like that, things like couldn't be quantized. And now not everybody, and also I sound like an old person, like yelling at but it's like, someone starts nowadays, like a kid starts producing, right? 15 years old, they get a DAW, and they may not even have like a beat pad. And so the first thing that they do is just draw everything into the grid.
Yeah.
Whereas 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it was like
there was
not
no
most
such
people
thing.
would have a DAW. Yeah, and you would have to play it in. You'd have to finger drum it. So if you weren't the best at finger drumming, your beats are going to sound like that. So yeah, I guess that just like I thought about it because it's like our tech and like our tools that are used, like what you're talking about with like mastering sound. The first thing it made me think about is like the fact that lo-fi is always trying to emulate vinyl is the way that I think about it. And it's
like that, yeah. In the beginning of this lo-fi shorter, it was exactly this, like having searching up for the oldest possible sample that you can find, or like going to the garage to your grandparents and looking up for some very old and dusty vinyl records and make some super smooth beats onto that. Just the whole lo-fi thing changed so much over the last decade, let's say. I had this topic on the first podcast that is coming out in 2 days, and how the whole lo-fi scene changed so much. Because I already discovered like some chill beats short before there was this super big lo-fi girl hype. And it was like super dirty. It was perfect stoner music, to be honest. Like lighting a blunt and just chilling on the couch, having some chill beats in the background playing. And then this whole hype came up. Also, I would say it was stronger in the Corona times when a lot of people just chilled at home or had like home office to have something in the background running that is not driving too much attention. And also what Cody said on the last podcast is he tried this Suno AI, this AI music maker, and everything he typed in, make me a this and this type lo-fi beat, everything sounds like lo-fi girl. Like they got like this whole how do I say, they kind of branded the whole scene with their own style. And actually very little producers that I know, and I know meanwhile a lot of chill beats producers are riding this wave or making beats that sounds like this. This
because it's old at this point.
Yeah,
it's like solidified. Yeah, it's very interesting. Lo-fi girl is a very interesting concept. And the whole, like what you said, like with Corona time, like Corona. I wrote an essay a while back ago. It was actually like at the end of the pandemic when I was still in academia, and I wrote this like essay, this research paper about how for decades the Western like music culture has been trying to like sterilize sound. And it's like kind of something that we see throughout all of it. All of like European and like Western, like American music, where there's always been this like obsession of like removing extraneous sound and like trying to make things sound more and more sterile and like codified. And recently I feel like that kind of hit a tipping point. And I think Corona had a big part of it because we don't think about noise as much as some other cultures do. And yeah, like something I do in addition to being a musician is like I work on sound ecology. So like specifically studying like how noise and sound like affects ecosystems and like psychoacoustics and stuff like that. That's how I got into like acoustician work and stuff like that. And yeah, there was this big tilt of like the sound got too pure and too clean recently. And all of these genres, like, and even main genres like rap and like rock, I feel like it's kind of going backwards where like our recording equipment is so crisp and so clean that it almost makes it feel unworldly or something like that. And so now producers, yeah, exactly. And now like all these producers, like every producer adds some type of noise back into their like channel signal, even if it's not lo-fi, like with saturation and stuff. I think it's because we finally hit a point where our sound got too sterile. It's interesting. It's a very weird cultural phenomenon.
Interesting. Yeah, and I can remember how around 2017 the whole mainstream rap thing changed from this super clean production to this dirty punk style production, like with Lil Peep, Suicide Boys, Ghostman, all this really dark type rappers,
the SoundCloud rappers.
Yeah, it was super punk like, and also the topics of the raps were super dark. And I loved it, obviously. But yeah, there was a huge shift. Like also you just told from the super clean back to the dirty, noisy music.
Yeah. The SoundCloud rap era was like the era that I started making music, was like the early 2010s, so like 2012, 2013, 2014. That was when I played piano my entire life and like did music stuff. But that was, I broke my shoulder doing skateboarding, longboarding. And I couldn't practice piano at the time, obviously, because my arm was broken. And so I got into producing, and I downloaded like a cracked version of FL Studio and started making beats in like the early 2010s. And that was like the start of my music career, was like making beats for like SoundCloud rappers. And it was just like everything was online. It was cool because I lived in a place that didn't really have a music scene like that. And so, yeah, I was really lucky in that way of like, I started making music at like, you know, the blow up, like the beginning of that like whole new era of like everything switching to being online instead of like having to be in LA or New York or Nashville.
That definitely opened like a lot of doors for a lot of producers, but it's so funny.
100%.
My music career started with a broken foot from a longboard accident.
Nice.
But it was, I don't know what year it was, probably a bit, like 10 years ago. It have to be like exactly 10 years ago, because it was like right after my military service that you have to do in Switzerland if you're turning 18 and gotta finish the apprenticeship. And yeah, I broke my foot, couldn't walk for like half a year, and a friend teach me how to DJ. And the production came like years later.
Nice. Yeah, those injuries, that is funny. Almost like the same thing.
Yeah,
like
both longboarding, that's that's so funny.
I was super into longboarding. I was like an extreme sport junkie. Like I love snowboarding, like longboarding, skating, surfing. I'm a big fan of like all of those types of sports. For the longest time, that was like I wanted to be like a professional like export athlete. like an extreme sport athlete. I wanted to be like a surfer or like a longboarder for the longest time. And then landed on musician. Definitely didn't have the like astronaut or doctor dreams. I was like, no, I want to do something cool.
Yeah. So you were into downhill skating with the longboard as well? Yeah, that's great.
Yep. That was the big thing that I did. I was like super into like park snowboarding, and I ended up like getting a sponsorship for that. And I would like do competitions, like a couple competitions a season. And then like the rest of the year was like, well, I'll go skateboard or I'll go longboard. So I also did like actual like skating, like kick flips, that like that type of skating, like park skating. And then, I was super into downhill longboarding. I would like have all the gear, like the racing gloves and stuff like that. I still have one of my longboards from back then, and it was like a racing longboard. It was like carbon fiber and like woven bamboo. It was really fun. I've longboarded down several mountains on the west coast of America.
Amazing.
I've gone very fast, like scarily fast. I have a pair of trucks somewhere around my house where I like completely bent the trucks from like going so fast and like sliding around turns.
Yeah,
it was like down a mountain.
That's exactly what I loved about the sport as well, like going down the mountains. Yeah, we have like mountains on every corner here. It's actually
I bet it would be crazy.
The greatest place for this, but also the other part is because it's a small country. All of the mountain roads are filled with cars. And you really have to search for like gems that are not that big in traffic, but still crash into a car.
Yeah, we would have to like have somebody like drive, like a lead car drive in front to like signal to cars coming up, and like we would have like our headphones in and stuff and just like all be on a phone call with each other so we could shout anything out, and it would be like 3 or 4 of us just bombing down like a mountain with like our gloves and jackets on. It was really fun.
Yeah,
very dangerous.
We did the same thing. We did the same thing, but it was like my time to go spot the next curve. And it was like the first run of the season, and I was like too hyped and went way too fast.
Oh no!
But you did it super intelligent with the phone call. We only like clapped the gloves, with the plastics that you had on the gloves. We only communicate on that with that tool.
We were just like I think that came from like snowboarding too, where like we would kind of just like we would ride the lift up, like my friends and I that would go like snowboarding. And like we'd ride the lift up, and then we just like put headphones in, like earbuds in, and like it was just like, I don't know, something that we got into, because it's like once you're off the lift, like if you're just gonna bomb around on a snowboard, it's you can get separated really easily.
Yeah,
and like
true.
we would also like to do like back mountain stuff, where we'd like kind of take the ski lift up to the top of the mountain and then go off the slopes, which was super not cool. Like the mountain would have been super not okay knowing that. We would go like build our own ramps and stuff like that. I had a friend whose family was like a part of the local ski patrol, so we would just be able to go up to the mountain all the time, and we'd take like shovels in our backpacks and just go build like our own ramps and stuff.
Here it's such a normal thing to do that, actually.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I know so many people are going up with shovels. Also, I know some people, they're going for the extreme. They put on this snowshoes and walk the whole mountain up in the night, just to hit the road with the first sunlight coming up and like super fresh snow.
Yeah, that's something that that's a trip that I've been planning on doing since last winter. I want to do it like maybe this next winter, where there's this big mountain, and it doesn't have any ski slopes. It's just like a giant mountain. up here in the Pacific Northwest of America. And there's like no snowboarding on it or anything. And it's like during the summer, it's a hiking mountain and stuff, but it gets a lot of snow. And a really popular thing to do is exactly that, where you snowshoe up, and it's like a 2-day hike up to the top of the mountain to the peak. And there's like a small like forestry cabin there that you can stay in. And I really want to like snowshoe up there with like my snowboard. You just take your snowboard like strapped to your backpack.
Yeah.
Do the 2-day hike up there. Your first day's in the snow. Your second night you get to stay in the cabin, and then you just snowboard all the way down. So it's like a two-day trip to get up the mountain, and then you like get down it in like several hours because you're just bumming down this like fresh powdery mountain.
Yeah, I haven't been into skiing for a long time. I tried snowboarding. It was kind of weird. I was good at downhill longboarding, but had absolutely no talent with the snowboard.
Yeah, it definitely feels different.
Yeah.
The strapped in is weird if you're only used to longboarding, the being strapped in sideways like that.
Yeah, but the thing is, I live actually in the country that's a paradise for go snowboarding and skiing. But here, it's such an expensive trip just to go for 1 day up.
Yep. Same here.
That I kind of,
Yep. It's expensive.
And I could not say that like making music is cheaper. It's definitely not. But you can do it the whole year. Yeah.
And like, it is. It's pretty expensive here in the Pacific Northwest too. And it's like, you have to keep all of your gear up to date and like clean and not clean, but like, make sure your bindings don't break. I've had some bad situations with like gear. Like I've gone on like a slope and like almost broke my ankle because like my bindings broke in like the middle of a park run. And I like that sucked because I like traveled to this mountain and we drove like 6 hours to this mountain, and like fourth or fifth run in, it was so cold that like my bindings plastic like froze and just snapped after I like hit a jump. I like hit a jump and landed, and like the pressure of like my boot like jolting on the land just like instantly like snapped the straps of my binding. It was like, okay, cool. Drove for 6 hours, snowboarded for an hour, and now my snowboard is broken. Awesome. Damn. That's the end of my day.
Oh shit. Yeah.
I love extreme sports, big fan. But
me
haven't
too.
done it so much lately because I'm afraid of breaking stuff. I'm old now. I don't want to break my hands or my arm being a piano player.
Yeah, and after like getting new priorities in life, I'm also not going out for DJing or to like loud venues and parties. Just to like keep my ears working as long as possible.
Yep, totally.
And
I have to take earplugs with me.
You grow old and then you change priorities. That's totally normal. Even if for an artist, I guess it's more normal than for regular people. Because I don't know how it's for you, but I like constantly trying out new hobbies, new stuff. Like this podcast, I had this idea and let's give it a ride. It's actually a lot of fun just talking about music or extreme sport, like in our case. And you wanted to tell me this thing about Spotify yesterday.
Yeah, the perfect fit content. And it's funny, I guess this like loops back around to what you were talking about with Caleb, with trying out Suno AI. But we were talking about like discoverability on Spotify. And yesterday when we were chatting, and it's like, it's something that's been said for years, but it's like as artists, it might be time that we just have to stop using Spotify like completely, because I don't know, they're doing awful things to the industry. I mean, devaluing like the industry and just like extracting so much value out of it without providing too much. And I mean, it's been in the news like all over, but it's like every like year or something, there's something new that Spotify does that just like cuts out a large amount of value out of the music industry. But a big one that came out recently was the perfect fit content policy that Spotify is going to start using. So like, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, Spotify partnered or purchased or something like that. They got involved with AI and machine learning. And the whole idea was that they were going to work with their labels like UMG and stuff like that for the data sets to train genres or to train a like generative AI of all these different genres. And everyone was like, oh, this isn't great because, you know, AI is kind of unethical in the first place. Like it's kind of just like breaking copyrights and like non-crediting. Yeah, so it's like already bad in that way. But everyone's like, oh man, there's a lot of music on Spotify. What is that going to end up leading? Like that's a huge data set of music to train AI on. What is that going to end up leading to? And so now it's come out that they have this policy that they're wanting to implement called the perfect fit content. So as you know, like artists that don't receive a certain amount of monthly listeners, they don't get paid revenue, right?
It's if your track hits less than 1,000 streams, then you won't get money for this. Let's say you have 800 streams, then you won't get this money. But like if you hit 1,001 play, then you will get like the revenue from all the 1,001. What is actually nothing.
Yeah, but that's the majority of the Spotify catalog. Is songs under 1,000 plays.
I guess you're in the top 10 if you have more than 1,000 monthly listeners.
Yeah.
It's like super flat. And then in the top 10% is already 1,000. Top 1% is, I guess, more than 15,000. And to hit 100,000, you're in the 0.1%, I guess.
Right. That's not a lot of people. And like, so, oh man, here. So let me finish about this perfect fit content, and then I'll kind of like contextualize it with everything that's happened with Spotify, like in the US at least, is like, so this perfect fit content. So the idea now is that those editorial playlists and things like that, those playlists that pop up on Spotify, if someone is enjoying a song or they like start a song radio, right? Spotify is going to create like a playlist or a radio based off of that song. And they're going to use popular artists that are signed with a label that's providing the playlist, because all those playlists are curated by labels. Spotify fired all of their editorial team. Spotify doesn't make any of those playlists. They contract labels to make those playlists. I don't know if you knew that. So
I know that some of the curators are now fully AI. Or I heard that. I don't know it. I heard that some curators of this editorial playlists are replaced by AI, and especially in the lo-fi music scene or in the instrumental music scene, you have so many fake artists in like big playlists with millions of listeners that have super generic profiles. And yeah, you can check all their profiles, and there's a super easy way to see if someone has registered for Spotify for Artists. What is actually a must-have to pitch to editorial playlists. But why are so many artists on big playlists with like 1 or 2 tracks out that have not verified their profile and nothing? And I guess
That's the perfect fit content.
Yeah, but this topic I had with some other lo-fi producers like a year ago, or even 2 years. No, 1 year ago. There was this uh, big discussion round, like over weeks. This was the number one topic we talked about.
Well, now, so like what you're talking about, those artists that aren't like verified and you can tell they're like fake artist profiles, that's Spotify using the AI that they've trained.
Yeah.
So Spotify has pretty much committed this mass amount of copyright infringement and trained all of this AI off of these data sets. And now is going to fill playlists with AI generated music, like on the spot, of like, oh, you like this song? Okay, we're going to spin the AI. Here's a generated track that sounds just like what you're listening to, like a generic AI version. So now, like all of those playlists, all those editorial playlists, they're putting in these ghost artists because that saves them from having to pay actual artists.
Yeah.
Because the music is owned by Spotify, because it's produced by their AI. And instead of, say, like, they make a hip hop playlist, right? Or lo-fi, right? They put the biggest names that are signed to like UMG or like Sony, those people that have like brand recognition and name recognition, perfect. Throw them in. And instead of all those other like small time artists or indie artists, instead of putting them in the playlist, we'll just put our own AI artists inside the playlist, because then they don't have to pay those indie artists.
Yeah.
So that's the perfect fit content that they're wanting to utilize more and more. And that's kind of the whole game plan with Spotify right now, is that they want to make it so that the labels that they have record deals with, like UMG, Sony, Interscope, stuff like that, those artists are getting paid. And they want to try to cut out paying out as little other people as possible, because those legacy acts are the people that bring brand recognition and bring people to the platform. Like most people aren't going to sign up for like a Spotify subscription to listen to an indie artist. They're going to do that so that they can listen to the headliner acts, and then they'll happen to listen to indie artists. Spotify can just cut out those indie artists now, because they've trained all of their AI off of their data set, which is the entire Spotify catalog.
Yeah, I see it. I don't know how often you listen to editorial playlists. I
don't use Spotify at all.
Okay, but I use it. I use Spotify and YouTube Music because for like just having chill beats running, I play my own playlist, or sometimes I discovered this cool trick just to meet like-minded artists. I just started a radio, like this generic radio from one of my own songs, and then listen for an hour or something and pick out some artists that I'm just like, head up for a collab or whatever.
Right.
And I have
but those artists now,
those are all real artists that pop up
for now.
For now.
But that's the exact thing that Spotify wants to replace.
All of them are like above at least 10K monthly listeners. It doesn't really show me like super fresh indie artists.
Right.
But I guess how I see it is that you have to kind of play the game to stay in the game. Like getting this algorithmic recognition that Spotify is not replacing you with a bot, I guess.
But that's the thing, is like they're going to replace all of us with bots, though. Like,
we don't know yet.
We do know that that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Because also like so to go back with like context, in America, Spotify has been found in contempt of copyright. This happened probably, let's see, I think this was like 2021 or something like that. The American Union of Musicians took Spotify to court, and it got boiled all the way up to like the highest levels of our court of like, hey, Spotify is like stealing money from artists and from the music industry. And this kept getting elevated in like severity and severity and severity. And eventually the like top circuit courts of like America had decided that it was true and that Spotify has defrauded so much money from the music industry and from individual artists that it would never be possible for them to ever pay it back. And so they were forced in America to create agencies. It's called the Mechanical Licensing Collective. And it was a part of their court order was that Spotify has stolen so much money from the music industry and like has just crippled it to the point that their profit would never be able to pay off the debt that's owed to the music industry. So instead, they were tasked with having to completely fund and set up an agency that is overseen by the U.S. government to pay out mechanical royalties. Because Spotify's like accounting is like a black box, and like this is how like a lot of royalties work in America is like Spotify should be paying royalties to every single artist that has music on it in America. That's the law. If somebody doesn't claim those royalties, that money gets dissolved between Spotify and their major contracts. So UMG, Sony, Interscope, so on, so on, so on. So Spotify was forced with making a new system for people to claim those mechanical royalties because the way to record them or to report them and to actually get your payment from Spotify was so incredibly difficult that they like actually wouldn't allow people to do it unless they were signed to a label. So the only people for a very long time who were really getting paid any of their royalties in America were label artists. And they were getting defrauded. Like every other single artist is losing like 75% of their like revenue to Spotify because they made it so that nobody could claim their royalties unless you went through like an approved intermediary, which is a record label, so on, so on, so on. So then Spotify would just take that money and use it themselves. And that was a huge driver of their revenue. America said, this is completely against copyright law. You guys are breaking the law. You have to report this. You have to send the money to the artists. Like we have this in our laws. And so they forced Spotify to make the Mechanical Licensing Collective, which is specifically a way for anybody to be able to claim their mechanical royalties for their music on Spotify. And they have to completely fund that. There's a minimum amount that they have to put into it in funding and staffing every single year for as long as they operate in America. This completely ate into their bottom line because now they were making all this money from stealing the revenue and the mechanicals. They were saving all this money. Now that they have to pay it out, shockingly, a year after they're forced to pay for this and to pay people their royalties, they say, hey, actually, we're not going to pay you unless you hit this benchmark. So it's like, it's actually already the union is already attacking, like taking them to court again of saying like, hey, you were ordered by the highest courts in America that you had to do this. And now you're saying like, oh, we're not going to do it for these people. And so the unions are already taking them to court again.
I definitely have to keep an eye on that as well. But right now, they have, in fact, like the most active listeners compared to, let's say, to Apple Music or Tidal, Deezer. I don't know a single person that is listening on Deezer or Tidal. I know a bunch that are using YouTube Music, me as well, because it's great. And one thing that was so good back in the days of Spotify, when you could easily get your music out in the internet, was that it really helped independent artists. And now they're doing the complete opposite. So I would say a majority of music enthusiasts, from the point of view of the listeners, they don't want to get bombed with this mainstream music. And I'm pretty sure the majority of these people don't want to get bombed with AI-made music. There are for sure some good AI systems making songs that are not easy recognizable that they are made in AI. But also, just when scrolling through TikTok, you see so many weirdly generated AI stuff, even if it's a video or if it's music, that just like totally turns me off. And I'm like, what is this shit? Go away, blocked. Don't show it to me again. And I can remember there was this short time in this year where you had like your complete For You page when scrolling on TikTok was like one AI video after another, just telling some stupid stories that nobody cares about, or I don't know, about every single topic. There was like an AI channel just with like weirdly generated AI pictures flowing into each other, and then AI voices talking about, I don't know, philosophy or whatever. And I'm pretty sure the most of the people hate this. And I don't know why.
I think that's different than music.
I don't know why the algorithm is pushing it, because the whole For You page was full of that. And also videos on YouTube start to pop up, hey, how to make 5K a week with AI videos without effort. And I'm like, who the fuck is enjoying this content? Like, nobody.
But that's the thing, a lot of people are. A lot of people do, though. And especially with music, I think it's a little bit different too compared to a video, because think about like active versus passive, like participation, right? When you are interacting with something actively, like TikTok, you're staring at it, you're scrolling. Like, of course, there's like doom scrolling where you're just kind of like scrolling through, you're not paying attention, but you're watching, you're listening, and you're reading. That is like an active participation. You're doing all three things at the same time. You're using multiple stimuli. But there's passive stimulation or passive participation, where something is just in the background. And we had talked about this recently with like all of the like YouTube streams and stuff like that, like the 24/7 radios. People just put those in the background to have noise.
Yeah, true.
Have you heard about the YouTube channel Home Alone?
Nah.
Oh, dude, this is a trip. A record label made a ghost artist called Home Alone, and you can find it on YouTube. And it is all completely AI generated. The artwork is AI generated. The titles AI generated. The music AI generated. It's all lo-fi music. It came out of nowhere, and within like, I think it was like a week or something, it became one of the highest viewed and like streamed like music like artists on YouTube.
Oh, damn.
In the span of like a week, because it's so perfectly optimized, because it's using AI, that it's like search engine optimization and everything like that is perfectly optimized to be as like eye-catching as possible. Look it up. Go onto YouTube right now. Just look at the thumbnail. Just type in Home Alone.
Yeah.
Oh, it literally, okay, so when we're here, let me screen cap this actually.
Yeah, it's okay. I've already opened YouTube.
When I pulled up our video,
Okay, I just see like all the Kevin Home Alone movies.
Yeah, so here, check this out.
Home Alone
So when I
lo-fi.
pulled up our song, right? This is our song,
Yeah.
lo-fi music. Look at what's right here in the side.
Yeah, I just saw it on my screen as well. This covers.
Easy breezy, Home Alone. Look at this album artwork. That is so OG lo-fi.
Yeah.
You know, the Japanese like influence, which is like Super J Dilla and like Nujabes, right? It's a whole.
I have to say the artworks are looking pretty dope, man.
Yeah. But this is all AI. The music, the titles, everything is AI. And look, it's an hour and 57 minutes long. All of this music, it's AI generated. This was 4 months ago, 600,000 views. Not so much on this one. Some of them, way more. And there's just so many of these now. So like when people, and look at this, perfect like brand aesthetic, it's like this is going to replace Lo-Fi Girl. Like, but it's AI instead of somebody curating it and actually making all the music.
That's wild.
That's all AI. And so like, I think we have to like acknowledge our bias too. We're musicians. We care about music.
Yeah, true.
We like music. We like listening to music. We can interrogate it. We can pick things out, especially as an engineer. When you hear a song, you're like, we were talking about the sound of a snare, right?
Definitely.
Oh, cutting out the high frequency of a snare. 90% of people don't give a fly. I don't know if this is going to be censored. I won't curse. 90%.
Don't censor curses.
Yeah. Yeah. 90% of people don't care about music that much. It's just something that they have on in the background. So that's, I don't know. That's the weird thing. Who knows? Maybe I'm just that old person who's yelling about like calculators or something, right? I'm like, calculators are going to ruin math. But
I honestly kind of have this how do you say, always these English words that don't come up in my head. The faith that people will, like, people that truly love an art, even though they don't make it themselves, will always have an eye or an ear for, like, real art. I don't think that AI will ever replace some Michelangelo painting stuff.
Right.
I really don't think so. And this, but also is like one of my hopes that this AI thing is now a hype, and in like a year or two, nobody will care about it anymore.
I don't know.
We don't know.
I agree with you. There's always going to be enthusiasts. I 100% agree with you with that. There's always going to be those like audiophiles who are like, I want to hear the fact that this horn was played or these pianos were played by hand, and I can hear the keys of the piano like moving while they play, or I can hear the action of the caps on the saxophone. There's always going to be those people. But that's not too many people. And like, that's the whole thing with like Spotify, is that like, it's not a place to find artists anymore. It's just going to become this thing, I think, where you just turn it on in the background and that's it. And that's going to become its role in our culture, where you pull up the radio station. Oh, I want to listen to whatever, Kanye, Doechi, lo-fi, whatever. You type it in, you turn on the radio station, and it's just going to be background noise. And 90% of it's going to be AI. which is nuts.
And I kind of remember back in the days when Spotify was pretty new. I don't know if they're still doing it, or I haven't put my attention on. But I remember when it was super fresh, and I was in my gamer times when I had two screens. One was for TeamSpeak, and it's like one half of the screen was TeamSpeak, the other half was Spotify to have like background music. And on the desktop version, I could like hear what friends of mine are listening to. You know, when you had it connected with like Facebook, and you see like, oh, this Facebook friend is listening to this song, and this Facebook friend is listening to this song. And this whole social aspect, I really like that. I can't remember seeing that lately. Probably they have. Maybe I haven't put any attention to it, or just they removed it. But that was a super cool feature of it. Because then you see a cool person, and you know, this one has a great taste in music. What's he listening, or what's she listening? And then you click the song, and was like, wow, that's a great song.
There was that discoverability.
Yeah.
And I think that's leaving the platform. Like, for a while, I had a job where I had to play music all the time. Like, I was working like in the store, and we would play our own music, like playlists and stuff like that. And it was when I was going to school, when I was in college, and I would work 2 12-hour shifts in a row. That's a lot of music. And so I would like be digging, like it was practically like crate digging, just like modern era, where I'd find out all these like new like musicians and genres and stuff like that by the like related artists and stuff like that. On Spotify, they've like even changed the interface so that they push you, and this is like one of those it's called oh god, what is it called? It's called like dark pattern or something like that. It's like a term used for like development, like for video games and stuff like that, where if you go and look at like the Spotify app and like you hit play on a song, the first things that they're going to recommend you are not going to be other artists anymore. It's going to be
playlist.
This is radio. This playlist, algorithmically driven, like curated experiences, instead of like, oh, I really like this song. Because Spotify used to, they have this cloud of all these different artists, and they have the data of like, oh, the people who like this artist end up listening to this artist a lot. So then you would listen to that one artist, and you're like, oh, okay, hey, you might be interested in this random little artist or this random little artist. And you were able to like go down the rabbit hole and find all of these different like cool, small indie artists. But now it's like impossible to do that. I don't know if you said you do it a little bit with like listening to your radio, but yeah, I don't know. It's changing. Spotify, I don't trust them.
And what I have to say as well is for a good period of time, I end up discovering new artists, just like on social media, when they're going like viral, or even if they're not going super viral, but they show up in my suggestions in my For You page on TikTok, for example, or in the Reels. And I really like the music that I'm listening on the phone. And then I head over to Spotify and check out their stuff.
Exactly.
And yeah, it kind of shifts now when it comes to really discovering new music, to be on social media platforms, even though when having friends posting another song in the story, it's kind of harder when your bubble is full of musicians, because they only plug their own stuff. But yeah, I think that this whole content game is, in the end of the day, what will show your music to new listeners, and if they are enthusiasts, they will actively look up for it and create their own playlists. And yeah, it's totally rigged that it's so official, like you just told me, with Spotify and their whole AI system. And I don't know how it is with other online distributors or streaming services, like will Apple Music do the same too, or YouTube?
Yeah, I don't know. That's the hard part too, like with it's like all of these companies are experimenting with AI. Like Apple is AI, like development is insane right now. Like what they're doing with like training personalized AI on phones and like on individual hardware, that's going to accelerate its development so fast, especially because like so something with that new Apple AI that's really interesting is that so it monitors your applications, right? Think about what one of the biggest DAWs in the industry is.
Tell
Logic.
me.
Logic.
Yeah.
So Logic, from its inception, has had exclusive contracts with Apple until very recently. It's no longer exclusive now. But the reason why they had exclusive contracts, this started back in like the 80s or 90s, is because they were like open book on code. And Apple told them like, hey, if you give us the exclusivity, we'll give you our open book to our code, which Apple doesn't do. Apple doesn't share their code with a lot of people. And so that's why Logic became so popular and like got used so often, is because like it was really efficient running on Apple machines. Because it was designed specifically for Apple machines, and Apple like kept that in mind and would design things that Logic would be able to use. So now we get to the fact that there's going to be an AI on every single device monitoring every single thing that every single app does. Think about all of the studios that run Logic. All of that's going to be training generative AI for Apple.
You already have an AI session musician in Logic. You can choose an instrument and then go through infinite models. You can put in every detail, how the swing should be, how the rhythm should be, what kind of style. Let's say, I tried it out once just from curiosity. Have it play me a good piano part, and then you could say, what is the left hand playing? What is the right hand playing? How much is the swing? How quantized should it be? How humanized should it be? Yeah, that's...
And it's now like, that was like being trained on all the like published session work, right? All the stems like directly from that's been published. But now that AI is going to be being trained on every single song file ever created on an Apple product. So not even just the stuff that's published, but you know, if you have it on your Apple computer, that draft of a song that you make, that is now going to be used to train Apple's AI.
Crazy. That's
so it's
so crazy.
Yeah, so it's not even going to be just published music. It's going to be every single thing that every single producer works on is going to make that AI better. And so then it's like, whoa, that might increase the ability of like generative AI for music like so much. The fact that it's tied to Apple exclusively, it's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, it will. It's one fun fact, because I think we should... how long are we recording? Yeah, over an hour. Just like, or two things. The fun fact is that you cannot run this new Apple AI that is now on the phones or on the Macs in Switzerland. It's kind of, they don't have the rights here. I think in whole Europe,
Okay.
Europe, they don't have the right to get it online. So I cannot talk with this AI Siri, only with the regular one that I only use for like setting timers. Yeah. And before we end this episode, that's like one question that I want to ask every guest, is to give like a little life advice for the listeners. Could be anything.
Oh God. Dude, that's a question.
Spontaneously.
You should prep for that. Let's see here. One piece of life advice. Let me stare out my window and think about that. Okay, how about this? We've been talking about a lot how the industry is going to get changed by technology and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's going to change the industry. Who knows how it's going to change the industry, right? I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't think that should ever dissuade someone from being an artist or creating, because there's always going to be humanity in art, and it's going to be appreciated. And it's like, when printers and like the ability to print sheet music started, it was like, this is going to destroy concert music, because now anybody can just hear the music because they can buy the sheet music that's been mass produced and play it on their own at home. Why would anybody go to the opera anymore? And then it was the vinyl, or like the phonocordings, where it's like, oh, why would anybody go listen to live music when you can just buy a vinyl and listen to it at home? And even though we keep having these technological advancements, humans still like music and they still like art. And so so my advice would be, don't let current trends dissuade you from making something authentically.
Yeah, I can 100% agree on that. That was a great advice. And I guess why people are going to live music is the emotional experience.
Right.
And I think for our instrumentalist artists will be hard right now, but probably change. But I would say for musicians that sing and songwrite and like telling real stories, they should have not that big of a problem getting replaced by a machine that is completely motionless.
Yeah. Until we reach the like God computer or whatever, and then we're all cooked.
Yeah, I guess we have complete different problems then we have like this Terminator scenarios and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So be authentic, keep making art, and don't quantize your hi-hats. Play everything in.
Perfect. Then
right.
Thanks for this nice talk, and enjoy your day.
Yep, you as well.
Peace. Thanks.